Kia ora, high pressure with us through the weekend, generally spelling dry conditions for many parts of New Zealand. You can see on these charts we've still got the odd lingering shower around those eastern areas, and perhaps as we head in towards Saturday morning, a few of those showers across the far north there. But generally the story through the weekend, high pressure, dry weather and settled conditions. We'll still find some cold nights. Things will change though as we head in towards the next week. So keep an eye on the forecast, especially for those areas on that western coast. We've got more wet weather returning. But for the weekend, high pressure sits over us and it's generally dry. We will find beneath those clearer skies, particularly across those more inland parts of Canterbury and Otago, temperatures can still get down to around about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, but lifting back to even into the 20s as we head through Saturday. Daytime highs in towards places like Wanganui and crossing towards Waikato, around about 19 to 20 degrees Celsius, perhaps even 22 in the best of the sunshine. With the winds being a little bit more onshore, areas on that eastern coast will find temperatures here a little bit cooler, 18, 19 degrees Celsius for Napier. Not a bad story, just perhaps not the warmer spots we've been seeing in the recent few days. Overnight temperatures as we head in towards Sunday, back down to 4s and 5s across the south side. We will though find, as we head through next week, warm air comes back towards us. We'll find those nighttime temperatures lifting up. In fact, even as we head in towards perhaps Monday, Tuesday next week, we could find temperatures around some of those more eastern areas, around about the teens or so. So one to watch out for. It's a real changing week as we head through towards next week. Speaking of, though, you can see for Sunday, the weather pattern is fairly static, it's fairly stationary. Big area of high pressure sits over New Zealand. Beneath it, we'll still have areas of cloud. It's a classic time of year to get some early morning mists and fogs, particularly in some of those inland valleys, places like Wanganui and in towards parts of Waikato could find a bit of misty, murky mornings and nights. But in terms of rainfall, there's not an awful lot on the cards, and it's a similar story as we head on in towards Monday. You can see the high pressure has shifted its centre towards more the Chatham Islands, but it still sits over most of New Zealand and it keeps many of us dry and clear. The winds perhaps more northerly up towards parts of Northern, bringing that cloud back in towards places like Wanganui and up Whangarei, but not Wanganui, Whangarei, and in towards places like the Bay of Islands. While down south we'll start to find that wet weather pushing in towards parts of Fiordland and those winds increasing once more. It's this feature, or more notably an area of low pressure on that feature, that runs towards us, which will bring some wetter weather. Ahead of it though, we are looking at some warmer air being dragged in from the subtropics, and you can see our temperatures increasing a little bit, back to highs of say 20 degrees Celsius on Monday for places like Invercargill. Compare that to 15 or so on Saturday, so a real change in those temperatures, and we'll find that change lasts on in towards the night time as well. By Tuesday, that front moves further northward. You can see that wet weather pushing in towards Fjord and then towards the ranges of Westland as well. Some heavier falls through there. So it is likely, as we head in towards Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we could find some severe weather watches and warnings through there, not just for the wet weather on those areas on the western side, but also for some stronger winds in towards Southland and Otago. Well worth keeping an eye on that. This area of low pressure, you can see forming over the Tasman Sea, that's going to be the key player in what happens as we head towards that second half of the week. We'll come on to that in a sec. But for the rest of the weekend and in towards that first half of the week, you can see on these rainfall accumulation charts, there's not an awful lot of change, even through towards Sunday, just little bits here and there. As we head in towards Tuesday, that's when we start to see that wet weather pushing in towards the south. And I think as we head through the rest of next week, it will be a case that that rain will push further northwards and a little bit further out towards the east as well. But for those areas, places like Marlborough and Wairarapa, which are still very dry compared to what we've been seeing through February and March, there's not an awful lot, at least for the next few days. As we head on in towards the rest of next week, you can see the high pressure shifts further out towards the east. Lower pressures forming over the Tasman Sea run down towards us, bringing that wetter weather on towards the south line and particularly on towards the western side of the north line. Behind that, another area of high pressure builds for a time, but you can see still pretty unsettled down the south, and we'll keep these fronts running up towards us. But I think it is going to be a case that next week is a change and we lose the high pressure and we have these areas of low pressure run towards us. Still, a fair bit of uncertainty about the exact path of those lows. That's going to have a real impact on where we get the wettest weather for next week. But if we look at the predicted forecast for next week in terms of rainfall, you can see there's a fairly good indication that things are wetter than normal on those western facing coasts. We'll also find that's a similar story up towards places like the eastern parts of Bay of Plenty, even places like Mount Taranaki, Monga, in towards the Taura Range. These are the areas that, when everything comes in from the west, catch the bulk of that wet weather. So for these areas, we are looking at some fairly large amounts of rainfall, especially for those ranges through Westland. So well worth keeping an eye on the watches and warnings. That northwesterly wind hopefully driving some of the rainfall across in towards the headwaters of the lakes and rivers for the eastern side as well, getting some of that moisture across on towards the eastern side, but generally that eastern side having a fair bit more shelter thanks to those hills and ranges. The other thing we'll be keeping an eye on, temperature. And as we look at the anomalies for next week, we are looking at things generally being warmer than normal as well. A combination of those northwesterly winds bringing a bit of that firn effect for places like Canterbury and up towards, say, Wairarapa and Hawke's Bay. So we should find a bit of a boost in our temperatures there, but also that warmer air being dragged in from the north and down towards New Zealand as well. So next week, after that dry start with the high pressure, things are looking wetter but warmer as we head towards the end of next week. And that's it from me. There's more at metservice.com.